Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Photographer Profile. My name is Nathan Rupert, and I've been a San Diego photographer for over 18 years. Because social media is currently focused on video content such as Reels, I started this channel to give the photographers I've met a worldwide platform to share their work and stories. Please subscribe to the channel if you want to be notified right away when new episodes are uploaded or if you just enjoy the content. My guest today is Maximilian. Hey, what's up, Max?
It's going good. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to do this, and I think this is really cool for at least San Diego until you start going a little wider. But yeah, it's very cool. Thank you.
Thanks for coming on. Please just give us a little introduction about yourself and your photography for those
Okay.
watching.
So I started out photography when I was pretty young. Didn't have a camera. It was just taking pictures on mom's iPhone when I was in elementary school, and my family has always been into off-road racing, sports. I've done sports growing up. Until I was able to race, or when I wasn't doing sports myself, I was always fascinated in photography. As I got older, my parents finally bought me a camera once I got to, I think it was middle school. Once I had a camera in my hand, everywhere I went, camera had to come with me, any type of sporting event. Been shooting pretty much any type of sport you can find. A lot of racing, a lot of track and field, just anything with an engine, wheels, any sort of racing, anything, football, all of it. I've tried to shoot it all so far. So.
Did your school offer formal photography classes? Have you ever taken formal classes
So my
in
high school
school?
didn't. My high school didn't. I was pretty much self-taught besides having older friends or mentors helping me out. Once I got to college, funny enough, it was the only class I failed in college was photography. I ended up taking the class during COVID and thinking I had more time than I did. It was all online, and some of the assignments were to do certain stuff. At the time, I was racing off-road and running track and field in college at the same time, and I brought the camera to the events thinking I'd shoot them there and then I'd submit my photos, and it just ended up being way too much. It was the only class I failed. I found I didn't have as much time as I thought I did. I took the class, I learned a bunch from it, but I did not get the credit for it.
Did you retake it to redeem yourself?
I didn't, funny enough. I had graduated and I still had like a year of eligibility running. So it was kind of like, take classes you're interested in. I didn't get to redeem myself, but there are many things that I've taken from it. I feel like it was probably the most I've ever learned from a class that I didn't pass.
Where are you located exactly?
I'm in University City. I'm in San Diego. If you're not familiar with it, we're just east of La Jolla, just north of Claremont, right off the 805. So that's where I'm at.
And are you single, taken, or is complicated? What is your status for people wondering
Sing-
out there?
Single as a Pringle. So
Do you have any hobbies outside of photography that you enjoy? I know you mentioned track and stuff like
yeah,
that.
I ran track in college. To this day, I don't run competitively, but I still work out. So I really enjoy working out. I raced off road for a while. I enjoy just sports as a whole. I love to watch sports. Going to the Padres game tomorrow. So honestly,
Oh, fun.
anything sports wise, I'm really into finance. I love sitting there tinkering with numbers, and that kind of keeps me busy. And photography obviously does as well.
What events did you run?
I ran the 110-meter hurdles and then the 400 hurdles, but the 110-meter hurdles were definitely my specialty. The 400 hurdles were too long for me.
Did you watch the Olympics for those events
I did.
recently?
I did. I was actually in Europe at the time, and there's not many
Wow.
TVs. It was a little hard. I was with two of my best friends. It was a little bit tough to watch them because I was on vacation, so they would want to go out, and I was like, hey, give me another 30 minutes. The event's coming up. I actually watched all the track events in Italian because we were in Italy at the time. So all the announcing and everything was in Italian, but I did get to see the hurdles events, which I was happy about.
Inspiration, probably, for sure.
Yeah, definitely was. It was cool to see those guys out there.
Would you consider yourself an amateur, professional? How would you
I
rate
would
yourself, I
say,
guess?
I mean, I've gotten paid to do it. I would like to say that I'm a professional because when I do it, I typically am getting paid, but I definitely don't do it enough. Don't consider myself to the professional. I'm not doing it full time. I
Gotcha.
would
Okay.
I would say amateur, but on some weekends professional if I'm getting paid.
It's always nice to get paid. Even with friends or families, photographers don't do
Yep.
it for free.
Mm-mm.
That's what I say.
At least have them buy you lunch, do something for you.
And what excites you to go out there and keep shooting day after day?
I would have to assume, at least for me, it's probably the same as most photographers. You're just chasing that perfect shot, right? It's a big motivator for me. Anywhere I go, any sporting event, if I don't bring my camera, I definitely get a little bit nervous that, I'm going to miss the perfect shot. I have a fear of missing that opportunity. So that gets me to go out every time.
There's a good balance, though. When I travel to Europe or Asia or something, I'll take this night I'm going out to shoot night photography, but this night I'm going out to the club or the bar. I think there's a balance we need to have as photographers, so we're not just always behind the lens our whole
Yep.
life, in my
That
opinion, at least.
That's very true. And when I went to Europe, I had a back and forth in my head of, do I bring my camera or do I go just to enjoy this trip as a whole? I decided to bring my camera. I just brought one lens that I figured was going to be the most versatile for what we were doing. I kept having to remind myself, you're here to enjoy this entire trip. Not take pictures. You didn't bring all your gear for that. You just brought the bare minimums. There's definitely times where I find myself at certain events, whether it be, a sporting event that I'm enjoying, and sometimes you do forget to enjoy it because you're so locked in trying to get a shot, and you kind of forget that you're also there to enjoy the event.
It sounds like you have traveled quite a bit. Where's the favorite place you've traveled to so far?
Italy was tough to top. I got back 2 weeks ago. Outside of that, I have to say I love Baja, going down to Mexico.
Oh, okay.
It's a completely different world down there. Everything's slower. The deeper you get in Mexico, the nicer everybody gets, it seems. And it's a different world down there. It's amazing.
Do you speak Italian or Spanish?
I don't. I speak enough Spanish to get me by when I go down for the off-road races to go shoot them. In Italy, I spoke the basics, like the very, very basics at the time. And I won't lie, after I left, a lot of it went right out of my brain. It was just enough while I was there.
Just point at the pictures on the menu at the restaurants. That's what I do.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, it's going to be this one. And they're like, okay. Yeah.
And what is the best piece of photography advice you've received so far?
Ooh.
From any mentors or just from classes you've taken or real life experiences?
I was in the middle of Mexico, and a guy's name's Carter Littleton. He came up and he was doing video stuff for an off-road race, and I started chatting with him. And his best advice was, if you want to make a decent amount of money here in photography, he goes, start shooting video as well. Because at the time, that was where a lot of the money was going, at least in what I do, which is sports. There's a lot of money in the videos, and totally didn't take his word for it because I enjoy photography much more than the video stuff. But that was definitely probably the best advice I heard, and I've passed it along to anybody younger that's doing photography, is learn the video aspect too. Even if you don't enjoy it quite as much or it's not quite your niche, it helps because there's a lot of people out there that are hiring for photo and video at the same time, whether it be wedding, off-road race. I think learning that video stuff is really, really important if you want to kind of create a career out of it.
The higher end cameras can do that just with the turn of the dial, switch to video mode pretty easily.
Yeah, for a lot of people, it's very accessible. It's right there. But yeah, I'd say that was probably the best advice I've gotten.
And what do you think about AI and photography, the big buzzword for the past year and a half, 2
Tricky.
years?
I'm interested to see where it goes for sure. I don't think quite yet it's there where it's like going to take over. There's ups and downs where some people will really appreciate it. Other people, they don't want any part of it. Some people really like the editing and some people not quite as much. So I'm not too worried about it. I think it's really cool. I think overall, just as an industry, it's just progressing. I can enjoy that aspect of it for sure, but I wouldn't say I'm worried about it. I think the people who, enjoy a true photography and not having a photo completely chopped and cropped up and moved and having a bunch of stuff removed, I think the true people that really enjoy photography, I think will still enjoy the same photography.
Absolutely. I know you're young, but have you ever thought about what do you want to happen to all these photos when you die, when you're no longer here?
My hope is that my family, that they just keep looking at them and, it lasts a little bit longer than I do. I mean, I'm sure they won't last forever, but I know for myself, for most photographers, when you're taking, whether it be wedding photos or sports photos, you hope that those photos become a memory or something that they can point, when I take a certain picture of somebody, I hope it's something that goes up on their wall and stays there. Maybe when their grandkids or their kids are over at the house, they can point out and say, that was me a long time ago. It gives a little bit of a window into the past. I hope that those pictures are still hanging in the kid or the grandkids' room, or hopefully it gives them a little window into the past.
That's a great answer. And if you could take the portrait of any celebrity, alive or dead, what celebrity would you do a photo shoot?
I would probably, and this is more just because I'm a big fan, I would probably take Tony Stewart. He's a NASCAR racer, ex-NASCAR racer, current drag car racer, and he's raced just about anything there is. And growing up, that was my hero. He's been through a bunch. If anybody knows anything about him, he races anything. And he's got a very distinct face. And I think that'd be really cool. And because there's a lot of stories that can be told from him. I think that's what photography is about, is telling the story through a picture. So I think he would be a really cool one.
I'll take this video on his Instagram for you.
Hopefully so. I'm yet to meet him. I've got autographs of his from growing up, from family friends who got to meet him and got autographs, but I'm yet to meet him in person so far. Hopefully down the road.
Okay, you sent me a bunch of pictures ahead of time. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of these.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Can you see that? All right, go ahead and tell us the story and the reason why you want to showcase this
Yeah.
pic.
So this picture is Felipe Toledo. He's a professional surfer. This was up at Lower Trestles. So if you're not quite familiar with it, for any Southern Californians, it's a very, very big surf spot for us. This is the World Surf League, so which is the WSL. This is their championship. This is where they end their entire season. This is all of it. This is after he won the championship last year. I had a little bit of a longer lens. It was a 70 to 200, and I figured I was going to try to get a longer zoomed in one. So he's a Brazilian. The Brazilians are crazy at these surfing events. It's like a soccer game type energy, but they're all on the beach. The moment he comes out of the water, everybody throws him up on their shoulder, and he's getting walked in that shot. He's getting walked towards the podium, basically to his trophy, and everybody's going nuts. The dude just won the world championship. He just surfed his butt off in the water. That was one of my favorites because it just shows the emotion. You can see he's kind of up on some people's shoulders. It's right up here in my room. It's actually the first metal print I ever got, where I was like so stoked with the photo. I was like, I want this on metal, big, blown up in my room. The goal is to get him to sign it if I ever run into him in like Encinitas, Cardiff area. But yeah, it just showed total emotion of he's achieved the absolute highest accomplishment you can achieve as a surfer. And you can just see the pure joy on his face. And I loved it.
Did you tag him on Instagram?
I did. And I didn't get a like, I didn't get a repost, but,
no.
But maybe one day he sees it. I don't know.
I'll see what I can do to help you. I don't know.
If we can push it his way. He lives here in Southern California, so one day I'm hoping I bump into him maybe, but who knows?
All right. Tell us about this shot.
Yeah, so this is Lorenzo Bonacci. He's a pro buggy driver. So this is at Glen Helen, which is a motocross track, and there's also short course racing, which is what this is. He's in what's called the pro buggy class. They're super, super fun to watch. They're complete different sound than anything else, but this is coming around the second to last turn on the track and trying to get panning shots. Whenever I do off-road photography, I love to get a slow shutter shot. I think they're super cool. Anything that's going fast. I know we talked a little bit earlier about like the jets, anything that goes fast.
Yeah.
I love to give that blur in the background. It's kind of my signature piece whenever I go to the off-road races is to get a slow shutter shot. So whenever I get those, I'm stoked. Lorenzo's actually a young kid, and this was here in Southern California. They've since now they race out Midwest. They just finished up their season.
No.
Yeah, so they moved out Midwest. He had a really, really good season out there, but it was definitely a blast shooting it. And some colors pop more than others. The white on the brown kind of clay dirt that they race on at Glen Helen is just, it pops, and I love it. It's really a good color combination that I'm a big fan of.
Is this a 70-200 for this shot
As
well?
It might have been with a older camera, and it might have been a 70 to 300 with like a T6i camera, actually, because I know this was from 2019 or 2021, I want to say. So it might have actually been before I had that other lens.
And it's shot at like what, 1/100th or 1/80th of a second or something?
I would say this is probably about 160, 150. Usually I try to get down to, if I can, I try to get down to 130. But I have a feeling this is probably about 150, 160. Yeah.
It's hard to get the actual object in focus the lower.
Yeah, it definitely isn't. On the dirt, when they're coming around the turn, typically they're holding the exact same line around some parts on the track. There's bumps. It's almost impossible to get any slow shutter shot. But when they're coming around the berm, they're usually very smooth coming around. A lot of my panning shots are usually a car on a turn, because in the turn they hold their line, and although it's banked, there's a flat movement. Whereas when they're on the straightaway, there's usually bumps here, and it throws the whole idea of trying to get a slow shutter, the whole thing blurred out.
All right, let's take a look at the next one. All right. A little different shot than the previous two.
Yeah, definitely a little bit different. This is the one that's right behind the computer, framed in my room, actually. This was, so for San Diego's, they will recognize the game when I bring it up, but this is when the Padres knocked out the Dodgers 2 years ago in the National League Division Series. Big deal for San Diegans. The Dodgers are our arch nemesis here, and we've been trying to knock them off for a long time. My buddy invited me to this game and said, hey, I have tickets. Do you want to go? I told my boss, I said, I know I'm scheduled, but I'm not coming in that day. I have tickets to the Padres game. And at the time, the Padres had a chance to knock out the Dodgers. And I brought in my camera, which in Petco you're not supposed to bring in a camera with a detachable lens.
Right.
So what I did,
really?
What I did for this was I actually brought in just the camera body by itself. He brought in the lens by itself, and we just went through different games.
Oh, wow.
I've learned to get very creative getting into the certain places that, unless you have a media pass, they won't let you in. I was going solely as a fan. I gave him my lens and I walked in with a camera body because once I got in there, they said, what's that? I said, it's just my camera body. And there's no rules against just bringing a camera body in. They don't want you bringing a camera with a detachable lens. I didn't have the lens with me. They were a little bit baffled.
Yeah,
at the
still
start.
suspect, right?
Yeah, it was still suspect. I was like, do you guys have anything against it? And they're like, no, I guess it doesn't really make a difference. They let me in and I attached it, and I basically sat with my camera the entire game, adjusting settings to make sure that once the 9th inning came, that I would have a shot if the Padres won. It was a thriller of a game. Padres ended up coming back late in the game, and I basically snapped shots. I have kind of a sequence. There's one of the last pitch. There's one of pregame during the national anthem. And then there's this one with the fireworks going on basically right as the Padres rush the field. And coolest sporting event I've ever been to. It was amazing. The whole place is rocking. But I love that photo. I know it means a lot to San Diegans, and as a Padres fan myself, it's a big deal.
There has to be a new policy at Petco Park, because I used to go to Padre games. I live near downtown, and I would bring my 100, 400 lens with me, and no one's batted an eye. No one cares. It must be a new policy they instituted not too recently.
Honestly, it could be that it's in there, and if I showed up with it, no one would say anything. I haven't had the guts to walk up with my camera and try to test it yet. Maybe I will on Thursday when I go tomorrow. So maybe I'll bring it and see if I can get away with it.
It's a bummer that, they're taking that away from amateurs, but I understand, they have their own photographers. So
I think it has to do with their own photographers and guys bringing in, telephoto lenses and blocking other people's views and so on. But yeah, it sucks for amateurs for sure.
Okay, we have a couple more here, so I can look at another one. All right, fancy. I feel like I'm in Del Mar or something.
Yeah, a little
Rancho
bit
Santa Fe.
Up in the nice houses, right? Little bit different speed here, still speed, but a little bit different. This was this past year. There's the La Jolla Concours de Elegance, which is basically a very, very hooty-tooty car show that happens in downtown La Jolla every year. If you know where that park is by La Jolla Cove area, they basically block the whole thing off. They do this super, super bougie car show. And then after, on either Friday or Saturday night, they do what's called Porsches on Prospect. And so Prospect Street, if you're familiar with it, it runs right along all the major hotels and all the really nice restaurants there. I actually work in downtown La Jolla for my full-time job.
Convenient.
Outside of coaching. I brought my stuff with me. I parked at the back, and once I was off, I walked over and started shooting. This red just popped to me. I loved this car. It was kind of off of the main street, actually. I didn't get a lot of foot traffic in front of me. And I sat there, and I think I probably shot this car for about 40 minutes. I had to really, really drop down the shutter speed just to let in a lot of light.
You didn't have a tripod with you?
No, I didn't. I kind of brought my camera as like, oh, just go grab a few shots. I was doing everything from sitting down on my butt to trying to, I actually there was a cone, like a street cone. I grabbed the street cone, I put it there. I even set the camera there, trying to stabilize it a little bit. Because as you know, the moment you slow that shutter speed down below 150, it is all hell breaks loose with a little sniffle of the nose. So I'm pretty sure that this was one of the ones taken on that cone, because just about every other one was blurry. But yeah, I really, really had to open up the shutter, crank up that ISO and get it where it didn't get blurry, and just the reflection, everything about it, the way it popped. I really fell in love with the photo, and it's one of my favorites that I've ever taken for sure. I looked like a complete goofball taking the photos on the ground with a cone, sitting down, standing up, and people were every once in a while would kind of walk by and look into it, and I was probably about 15 yards away, so they wouldn't quite know that they were getting in my shot, as we've all dealt with before. But but it worked out really well, and I liked it. I just the colors of it and it being in downtown La Jolla, it's a San Diego staple there. So
All you need is some models walking by to pose for you or
that
something
would have
like
been
that.
really, really nice. If there's any models that want to pose for me in front of fast cars, I am all for it. I will take the photos.
Okay, let's go next one. Another speed racer.
This is this is also at Glen Helen, the track that I was referring to earlier, where the other one was taken. This is a friend of mine, Ricky Gutierrez. He was super young racing this truck, and it's a slow shutter shot. You can kind of see the dirt around the front and the top of the truck, and it's from a car that he's chasing in front of him. So
Oh, okay.
behind this all was going on is he was looking for his, I want to say it was his first podium ever in this truck. I think he was only like 17 or maybe even 16 at the time.
Wow, that's so.
And he was, yeah, he is a young gun. There's some young guns in the sport, but he was very, very young for even this level. Through a friend who had hired me, the Ebert family, they knew the Gutierrez family, and they told the Gutierrezes, hey, we have this photographer, if you want, he'll grab some shots for you guys. And so Gutierrez ended up hiring me and got to meet him and make friends with the family and everything. In this photo, he's actually chasing down Brian Deegan, who is one of the all-time, if anybody knows action sports. Brian Deegan is motocross and off-road, and he's, up next to, not quite next to Travis Pastrana, but he's in that same category of gold medals, and just he's a madman. Brian Deegan's in front of him. Ricky Gutierrez is 16, 17 chasing him down, which is just, you've got a legend in front of you, and you've got a young gun chasing down behind you, and him and Brian ended up having just an awesome race together. And this ended up, like I said, I believe being his first podium of his career in this Pro 2 class. So
Did he catch him? He didn't catch him.
I don't think he did. I want to say Brian got first and Ricky got second, or Brian got second and he got third. The family was so stoked because I got this entire sequence of everything happening, him chasing down Brian Deegan, and I'm chasing down a guy I watched on TV growing up. I have one of Ricky's photos actually printed up here. I had him sign it. I blew it up and I try to do that for any off-road racers that I get hired for. I try to blow up a picture and have them sign it just for myself. I think it's cool to hang them in the room.
I mean, this is why the reason I started this channel was to hear the stories behind the photo, right? It just makes it that much impactful, that much more cool. So that's
Yeah.
great. I love that.
Every photo might look like a base photo for you, but for the person taking it or for the person that's in the photo, there's usually a very cool story, something behind it going on.
Okay, let's go to the next one. Another motocross.
This is in Petco Park. This is where they do Supercross. The premier series for Supercross is the Monster Energy Supercross series, and so they race in Petco once a year. I was able to get my camera in through the same way that I got my camera in the other time as an amateur, stuffed in somebody's purse and brought in the body and so on. Although it looks like a freestyle event, this is actually a race, which they never do this. Without going into too much detail, it's called the LCQ. It's the last chance qualifier. Okay. And basically there's, two heats. They take the top 9 and the top 9, and then there's like 3 or 4 guys who can get in through the LCQ, the last chance qualifier. Those guys are the guys who are coming out of pocket to go to these races. They're going in debt to go to these races. They're not factory sponsored. They don't have the big semi-hauler. They're usually the guys who get through in these LCQs. The difference between getting from the LCQ to the main event and missing the main event is usually a decent paycheck, a payout. So for them to make it into the main event through qualifying through this last chance race, it's a really, really big deal to some of these privateer guys. So they're usually all just duking it out in this last chance qualifier. I don't know if it was his first. I didn't do much research into it, but when a privateer is able to make it, or one of the smaller guys is able to make it to the main event and get a shot to go win the race, it's not only a huge check off their mark, but it also usually brings in a little bit more money, a little bit sponsorship. So usually the guys are coming across the line all business, but it was cool to see that exultation of energy and just happiness coming across the line of like, hey man, I just made the main event.
This is him celebrating coming
across the finish line, now knowing that he's made the main event. So it was cool to see awesome. That, because you don't usually see that unless it's the main event and it's somebody who wins the night. But in his case, this was all the excitement literally just to make the main event, just to make it and say that I'm in the final race of the night. I thought it was a cool piece.
I have shot that event once before. It's a really fun event
Yeah.
to shoot. Everybody flying all over the place.
Oh yeah, it's a blast. It usually happens right around February, which unfortunately is kind of rainy season for us in San Diego. I've gone there and gotten dumped on in rain, but it is a really, really cool event to go shoot. There's so much going on.
Okay, let's go to the next one here. We have a trifecta for
Yep.
this one.
This was same night. I want to say that this was the one of the heat races. I don't believe it was a main event, but same kind of idea. Just a super cool event to shoot. In order, it's Marvin Musquin in first, who's a French rider. Behind him is Chase Sexton, who that night, in fact, he got his first ever Supercross win that night. I want to say this is the heat race. In the main event, he won his first. He ends up going on to be champion 1 or 2 years later. Funny enough, ironically enough, beating Eli Tomac, who is the guy in third in that picture. It's three guys who are top of their game, but Marvin Musquin, he's done great, came over from France. Chase Sexton, who was the champion 2 years later. Eli Tomac behind him. I believe that year he ended up winning the championship. I wasn't necessarily focused on getting this shot of, hey, I want to stack three riders up, but this was one of the shots where I was getting guys coming through. And then as you kind of see the race playing out, you can see that guys are going to start stacking each other. And they're all on different jumps, different rhythms. All of them coming up at the same time was just a dream shot for me. I was really trying to stack maybe two guys. And then once I saw them coming around the far corner, I saw that all three of them were in a position. I was like, I might be able to get all three of these guys. Total luck of the draw. Positioned myself, but luck of the draw that it all landed right where I wanted it to.
And you didn't have a media pass. This is just you shooting from the stands. Is that right?
Yeah, this is totally, I am on the bottom row of the stands, or at least as low as they'd let me go, as close to the track. I was trying to get the best shots I could without getting any media access.
That's crazy. I just like how you know everybody's name, like NBA stars. Like, this is Kobe Bryant, this is Michael Jordan. You just know their names. That shows you're a true fan, right?
Yeah, this is my sport. I mean, motocross, any type of racing, I've just been embedded in. That's what my family's done. That's what I did for a couple years. Being around it and growing up, I mean, ever since I was 3 years old, this is what's on TV for us at home. You know, some people it's football and baseball, and we do watch a lot of football and baseball at my house, but racing is the family sport in our family. So with this stuff, this is where my head's at. Outside of my family's not a track and field family, so I know my track and field, but racing is pretty much on 24/7 at the house. So this is my stuff. Yeah.
I have one more that you sent me to critique. Let me find that. Here we go. Okay, yeah. First, tell me about the shot, and then I'll give my critique.
Yeah. This is in Venice. This was literally just a couple weeks ago. I was in our Airbnb with my two friends, and I heard thunder strike really close. It was raining for a good hour straight. My friend's like, "You sure you want to go out? It's raining." I was out for 5 minutes, got a raindrop on the lens, immediately realized I didn't bring my towel to wipe off the lens.
Cover.
So I went right back to the Airbnb, grabbed my stuff, and goes, "Guys, I'm going to be out for a little while. I'm excited." I can't remember the name of this bridge for the life of me, but it is the main bridge in Venice. Went there, shot this, and was basically trying to get the boats going through. I didn't get any lightning. I was trying to get the boats coming through because there was a lot of boats doing this. This ended up being a police boat. If you're familiar with Venice at all, the entire town is built on water, built on stilts. There aren't roads that you just drive around. The entire thing is waterways. And I saw this police boat coming through with its flashing lights, and so that's what gave it kind of the sporadic lighting there. One that I wish I would have done a little bit better, but
yeah, I have been to Venice. I've stood on that bridge, probably almost the exact same spot.
I bet you it
took this picture. I think one of those buildings across the way there is maybe the hotel that I stayed at when I went in Venice there a long time ago. The only thing I can say, I love the color. I like how the police boat gave it a different feel, right? With the blue, it just seems like the white balance is maybe a little off. It looks very yellow to me, the buildings and the foreground. And the foreground is a little bit busy in my taste. Maybe if you could have found like one post to focus on or something. I know it's hard. You might have to move up and down a little bit to find a little better foreground. The foreground is just a little busy for me. It takes your eye away from the buildings and the police boat in the middle there, but it's all personal preference,
Yeah,
right?
well, I definitely agree with you. And when you're shooting a slow shutter, this was not 1/16th. This is 16 over 1. I think I got down to like 10 or 16 seconds a shot on this one. You can't avoid it, but the boats in the bottom left they're moving from the water a little bit. And I just wish I could have those still, you know?
I would say the average person, this would be a great shot. I definitely wouldn't mind hanging this up on my wall. It's not bad. It's just, there's little small things
Yep.
to think
Yeah,
about.
no, and I appreciate it. The yellow is definitely accurate. If I could get those a bright white, I would much prefer that.
Okay, I think that's all the pictures we have here.
Mm-hmm.
A couple more questions before we wrap up. Do you have a dream shot that you're hoping to take
Yeah,
someday?
so my dream shot is, and I don't know quite how I'm going to get it. I really, really want to get one of the off-road races in Baja. I want to get up in a helicopter, and I want to
Oh, wow.
there's moments where a lot of the teams, the really big money teams, will have a helicopter following them throughout the race. And when they get on the dry lake beds, some of these trucks are getting up to 140, 146 miles an hour. And on the dry lake bed, you can get such a cool shot because it's just desolate everywhere. If you get a slow shutter shot, you've got the dust coming up behind it. It's desolate, but you have this $1 million trophy truck that is just hauling butt down the dry lake bed. There's nothing to take your eye off of the shot. My dream shot is get up in a helicopter and get a slow shutter shot, kind of a blurred shot all the way around it, with a truck doing about 140 miles down the desert, 140 miles an hour down the desert lake bed, and dust going up behind it. But I either have to buy a helicopter, I got to find somebody who's going to let me go up in their helicopter first. But that's the dream shot for me.
Maybe they can attach a parachute or bungee cord to you and you can jump out and
I
take the
would like to do
shot.
that as well. Yeah, I would like to do that as well. Anything to get that just up over aerial shot. I've seen it done before by Larry Chen, who's a very, very famous automotive photographer, and he does great work. And I've seen him get that shot before, and that's one that I'm just like, I have to get that. I have to get that.
You've told some amazing stories. Is there any other weird or wild encounters or experiences you've had in all these events that you shot that you can think of?
I'll give you probably one of my most fun / a little scary one was down in Mexico. I did the Baja 1000 I was doing it for one of the families that was co-driving the race, or they would hop in for, I think it was 300 miles at the time. So it was the Mason Cullen family's car, but it was Cade Garcia and Nick Almeida. They were hopping in. So basically I was with their group shooting them the entire race. I wasn't really shooting the rest of the car. It was just when they hopped in the car and shooting all the behind the scenes stuff. And I think it was 2021. And anyways, it was night. If you know what the Baja 1000 is, the race itself will last up to 36 hours. And you're up pretty much the whole time. You might nap in the car for about 30 minutes to get from one spot to another, but it's a go, 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 go. And there was a pit stop at probably about 2, 3 in the morning. The town is just alive. I mean, you're in the middle of nowhere and there's this small little town. And this is where a bunch of the guys decided to pit stop at because of fuel situations. And it's packed. I mean, the entire road is slammed with people at 2 or 3 in the morning. There's not a store in sight. It's pitch dark because you're in down deep Baja. There's no light pollution going on with the stars. And I look up and there's a building and it's 2 or 3 stories up and it's high. I look up there and I see people. I was like, I need to get to there to shoot down, get a slow shutter shot of something going by, whether it was our guy or not, but get a slow shutter shot of somebody going by so it would blur the people that are lining it with the truck and the light. You would be able to see the truck, the lights, but the people would all be blurred in the background. I wanted this really unique angle. I walked over in typical Mexican fashion. You're thinking, do I have to give them money? What do I have to do to get up there? Because it was literally just somebody's house.
Yeah.
It was essentially like more of an empty building. If you've been down to Mexico, the houses are a little bit different. And so I'm like, hey, with my limited Spanish, can I get up there, photo? And they kind of looked at me and like, dinero? I was like, no, I don't have any money, but I pulled out stickers. And during the off-road race weekend, stickers are a use of currencies. I started handing them a bunch of stickers.
Oh, really?
My stickers and racing stickers. They love the stickers down there. They let me up and I'm waiting for him to walk in there and just head on up the stairs and you'll be good. I walk around the corner and there's a ladder. And it is one of those extending ladders. And it went up 2 stories. And I'm looking at it going, oh gosh, like that's not, I was expecting to just go up some stairs and I have all my photography gear. It's 2, 3 in the morning. I am in the middle of nowhere, Mexico. I look down at the guys and I'm going, hey, can you hold the ladder? And this ladder is just rickety, man. It is rickety, Nathan. Can you guys hold the ladder? And yeah. You're good. And I'm going, well, if all those guys got up through the ladder, I mean, I guess I got to be able to get up through the ladder. I climbed this, and it was definitely, I think, the highest I've ever been on just a ladder. I was up 2 stories on this ladder, and finally get to the top of the building, and I'm shaking because I'm just like, man, if something goes wrong down in Mexico at this point, you're done for. And I was down with the team. I had very literally just met pretty much everybody I was with besides one guy 2 days before. And if you fall, they're waiting for their pit stop. They're not going to leave their pit stop to go take you wherever you need to go. So I went up there, I got the shot, and I said, screw this, I'm getting down, man. I climbed down, it was sketchy. Funny enough, the picture I ended up using, I later saw on YouTube. It was Robbie Gordon in his trophy truck, and the photo got stolen off of my Instagram. He used it for YouTube thumbnail, and I went after him. I immediately DM'd him. I DM'd the company that posted it. I was like, look, this is my photo. You could literally see my watermark half cropped in it. I went
half cropped, not even full cropped.
Not even full cropped. I put it as centered as I can, so it makes it pretty tough. But I went after him, and I blew it up on social media, and it got, not a ton of traction, but it got enough traction for within, I want to say it was within 24 hours, they had changed the thumbnail. And the funny thing is honestly, had they just reached out to me and said, hey, we love this shot, any chance we could put it up, I would have said, go for it. Just give me credit. I already got paid out for this race, but instead they ended up having to change it around. So, and that was with all the work going into that photo and how scared I was to get it. That was one photo I was definitely not going to let get stolen, as I'm sure most photographers have dealt with.
Too cheap to even throw you like $100 or $200 or something for a like company.
That. And that was one of the things I was ripping on too. He's known for being a little cheap. And I made sure that was known, and not only in the comment section on his post, but on my post of it saying, if you guys can report this YouTube video. But it was like, dude, you're charging $60,000 for UTVs that you make, and you've got a $500,000 trophy truck, and you've got a full sponsorship, and you can't pitch me any money or even have the decency to reach out. Like, it was gross. It was just gross, cheap overall. And it definitely, not that I had any great taste of him before, but it definitely was like, all right, stand up for yourself, because somebody might have the money and they don't care anyways. So was what it was, but it was a really cool story, and one of my more favorite photos that I've taken for sure.
That was a great story. Thank you.
Thank you. I know it took a little while, but it was a good time.
So what is the best way for people to contact you? Do you prefer Instagram, your website? What's
Instagram
the best way?
is best. Instagram is best for me. If you follow my Instagram, every once in a while you'll see some personal photos on there, but it's primarily my Instagram. My Instagram is at Max, and then it's Depot. So Max_Depot. There's no T at the end. It's just DEPO. Or if you search up Pintography, which is my company, PINTAGRAPHY. If you search that up, go on there. If you see any photos you like, just feel free to shoot me a message. Or if you have any event coming up, graduation photos, anything of that, just reach out to me. I'm usually on it enough to where I'm pretty quick on my responses. But as for business purposes, that's just what I go through. It keeps it simple, keeps it all organized. Or if you want to shoot me an email, it's pintography@gmail.com, which is also on my Instagram account. So easily accessible through both of those.
Do you have a website, or you just use Instagram?
I don't. I just use Instagram and email.
And for those watching, I'll put links to his Instagram in the description of this video as well, so you guys can find it easily.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, man. Well, thank you so much. Love seeing the photos and hearing the crazy stories.
Yeah, thank you, Nathan. I really appreciate it. It's cool to go on there and get inspiration from other photographers and see a lot of photographers I don't follow. And as you said, this being able to tell the stories of the photos, that's, I think, what photographers get a real kick out of, because we've all got our own stories to certain stuff. So I appreciate you doing this, and I wish you the best continuing. It's very, very cool what you're doing. I'm glad to see it. I hope it continues to take off for you.
There seems to be a never-ending amount of San Diego photographers here. It's such a big community.
I'll shoot you over some if you're interested, that might be interested in talking to you, for sure. I got some friends around town. So
thank you so much. Have a great night.
Yeah, you as well, Nathan.
All right.
See ya.